Hello everybody, welcome back to Higher Learning Test Prep's online video tutorial series. Today we're looking at Passage 1 from this ACT from December 2014. Particularly, we're wondering about how to move efficiently through this passage, how to get the idea of what's going on in an efficient manner, and also being able to answer the questions efficiently. And that all comes down to not just a good skim, of course we're going to skim, but more importantly, skimming not to just get main idea, of course, but also to get a rough layout of the passage. And that second part is maybe the most important on prose pieces. Because we're not going to get everything that's going on here, and it can be very uncomfortable to not understand exactly what's going on. But we have to get comfortable with that idea of we're not going to get everything that's going on. All we need is the main idea and a rough layout. Okay, so here we go. It's going to sound really silly as I read this because this is written in the vernacular of the author or of the protagonist. The passage is adapted from the novel The Magic Keys. In the passage, the term stopgap gig refers to a temporary position as a member of a band. When I finally told Taft Edison about the time I had spent on the road with the band, I said, man, it was the beginning of an incredible summer transition job that I needed because I had to get enough cash to supplement the graduate school fellowship grant that I had been awarded. When I left home for college, my main musical involvement beyond listening and dancing to it was humming and whistling it. I said, man, when Hortense Hightower told me what she told me about suggesting me as a stopgap replacement when the boss man himself called and just happened to mention in passing that Shag Phillips had given notice, I couldn't believe it. But she said, don't worry about it because he doesn't go around looking for superstars. He makes his own. Okay, let's go to the end of the paragraph. You've heard about those big-time college profs talking about those linguistic experts that can listen to half a sentence and tell you where you come from? Well, that's him when it comes to music. Well, who is him? I'm going to go up a little bit and see if I can find anybody else. I don't see anybody else, so I'm imagining we're talking about the boss man. So I know what's going on in this paragraph now. This paragraph is introducing the idea that Hortense Hightower set this protagonist up with the boss man himself because Shag Phillips had given notice, or in other words, quit. And apparently the boss man is this big deal that really understands music. I don't remember ever really touching, let alone trying to fool around with the bass fiddle before Hortense Hightower gave me one in the spring of my junior year. Okay, that was probably important enough to read the whole thing. Short, sweet. Okay, I had never thought about Taft Edison as having ever had any serious personal professional interest in dance bands. So this is getting back to this guy up here that he's telling about his time working in the band. As far as I knew, none of the music school courses had anything whatsoever to do with becoming band leaders. Okay, we read those two in full because they were really short. We'll skim these next few. My impression of Taft Edison from the very outset was that his ambition was to create compositions based on down-home sacred and secular music. I'm going to stop right there because he was the student who conducted the school's widely popular college marching band. Okay, so this is just about who Taft Edison is. Next paragraph. But although there were two student-led bands on the campus at that time, I can't remember ever having seen him, imagining that's Taft Edison, playing with either of them. End of the paragraph. He could identify as many bands and sidemen as instantaneously as any of the other dance band musicians, record collectors, and Patent Leather Avenue Sharpies as happened to be there at the time. Okay, looking for a proper noun name other than Taft. I don't see it, so that's still talking about Taft Edison. That he knew a lot about this style of music, about swing bands and dance bands. Okay, so when I told him about my stopgap gig with the band, I didn't know what his response would be, but I did so because I had decided I'd better mention it myself rather than running the risk of having to find out about it incidentally. Okay, just the author being nervous about talking to Taft. Next paragraph, but as I should have remembered from his own completely unsurprised and ever so casual response when I introduced myself to him at Fifth Avenue that day, he didn't register any surprise at all. Okay, gonna pull up the rest of the passage here. I left it out to begin with because it is gonna cover up part of the passage. So let's see, screenshot must be this one. Okay, I'll move it over as far as I can. Okay, but he said, I do remember hearing something about some college boy filling in for a while. Man, I can just imagine men when I woke up every morning and realized where I was, wherever I was, I would have had to pinch myself. Okay, so I don't have to get everything that's going on, but what I do get out of my skim, which if I wasn't reading aloud would have taken me about a minute, was that the author joined a band. He didn't have a lot of experience, in fact, no experience. Horton's Hightower helped him get into the band, even though he wasn't really trying to be in the band. And this guy, Taft Edison, was sort of the local aficionado when it came to music. And the author is sort of debating about how to let him know that he was in one of these bands. He seems a little bit humble about it and not so eager to brag about being in the band. Okay, so we're going to look at two questions here. We're going to look at 5 and 6. According to the passage, the narrator's first memory of playing bass fiddle was when? Okay, so if we did a good job skimming, we can remember that in this short paragraph, they mentioned that they'd never touched a bass fiddle until Horton gave one to the author. So that's D. 6, the narrator most strongly implies that he was initially impressed by Taft Edison as a result of. Okay, we see my impression of Taft Edison right here. These two paragraphs are the ones that talk about what the person really thought of Taft Edison. I guess there's a little bit before here too. But it says, the most strongly implies he initially impressed by Taft Edison as a result of. Well, let's see. If I go through here, he wanted to make a sort of combination of old music and composed music, or down-home music and composed music. Because he was a junior who impressed me more than anybody in the School of Music because he was the student who conducted the school's widely popular college marching band. Okay, he was impressed because of the marching band. That'd be H. Okay, great. So these prose passages, the hardest thing about them is being comfortable with your skim. Effective and comfortable. You're not going to get everything, but you want to get the main idea and, importantly, as you can tell, the rough layout. For questions 5 and 6, I was able to answer these questions because when I had skimmed, I noticed that this little paragraph talked about picking up the bass fiddle for the first time, and I also noticed that these two paragraphs were the ones that dealt with Taft Edison, and especially the impression of him. Okay, so the other thing to remember on the ACT is that we should really look for literal answers, answers that are exactly what we see in the text. So if you're not sure what the answer is, you should spend a little bit more time in the passage, and if you're moving a little bit more or a little bit slower than you would like to move, what I would suggest doing is focusing on improving your skimming method so that you understand the rough layout and that you get the main idea in that first skim. Because that way you'll be able to go back to the important language that you need to get the exact words for the answer choices. Okay, great. Hope that helps, and stay tuned for another reading video coming right up.